Hey guys, it's been about 5 months since I first did a video on how to propagate a pothos, and in today's video I wanted to give a quick update on how that plant has been doing, as well as answer some of the questions that I saw in the comment section. So let's begin first with a really quick recap on how to propagate a pothos, and if you do want the full explanation, I will link the first video up here so you can go ahead and take a look at that. But basically what you want to do is look for a long stem and then just cut in between the nodes of the plant. So what the node is where the leaf meets the stem, and then once you cut in between them, you should have a bunch of leaf cuttings. So you just want to put all of these leaves into water, and you will start to see new roots starting to grow in as little as 24 hours. Now the trick here is to actually be kind of patient, because it does take a little while for the roots to establish themselves. So you will be waiting something like 2 to 3 weeks for the roots to really start to fill out and the plant to start growing again. At this time, you can decide whether you want to put it into soil or maybe just keep it in water. So the great thing about pothos is that you can continue to grow it in water. All you have to do is remember to change out the water every maybe once a month or so. So without further ado, let me show you guys that scrawny plant in that video has actually bloomed and grown into a really beautiful plant now, and here it is. So I am so happy with the way that this plant is turning out. I actually did replant it into another planter, and I actually changed the medium that it was growing in. So in that video I had it growing in soil. Today I have it growing in LICA. LICA stands for lightweight expanded clay pebbles, and I just find that this is so perfect of a medium for growing indoor plants. Basically it mimics soil, but it doesn't have the nutrients, so you will have to put in a nutrient solution. But the great thing about LICA is that you can plant it in a non-planter bowl, so this doesn't have to have any holes, so you won't be dealing with the mess of water, but at the same time the roots do have some sort of earthy substance to cling onto. So I'm very happy that I decided to plant it into LICA, and this is really happily growing in this medium. The other thing that I did is when I planted this is you can see some of the tape. So I actually put grid lines, and this is just a little trick that I learned from a florist. Basically what she does is she puts grid lines so that she knows exactly how many plants to put in each section, and that just makes it have a very even looking plant at the very end. For the next part of this video, I'm going to just answer some of the questions that was posed to me in the comment section. So the first question is, what do you do after placing the pothos in water, and does it need direct sunlight? So basically it's just a waiting game. You just want to wait for the roots to really grow in. Some of the things that you can do is put the pothos in an indirect sunlight or somewhere near a windowsill. For me, I have an east-facing window, which is this window right here, and I really like east-facing windows because it does get an ample amount of light throughout the day, but it's not very harsh, and I think that's the best for growing your houseplants in. But this might be completely different in different parts of the hemisphere, so you have to Google it, or you just have to go through trial and error really. But I noticed that my east-facing window is the best place for me to grow my houseplants. So this one does get a lot of indirect sunlight throughout the day. I wouldn't suggest putting it out in the sun because the leaves can burn, and I have a sample of that. So this is what happened to one of my pothos plants, which this guy, just to show you guys how resilient the pothos plant is this guy, I actually left it in my office right before this whole quarantine situation, and I wasn't able to go back to my office because it is in a different city. So this guy was left for 1 month, and I think at the time when I got back to the office there was no more water in it, but it was still surprisingly it was still alive. So I'm so thankful for this plant, but it did burn because I put it very near the window. I actually put it in a window where it receives really direct sunlight, and right now it is recovering. Like you can see that all of the new leaves actually burnt off. So that's something that I wouldn't do. Don't put it outdoors because the pothos can get stressed from having too much sunlight. The other thing that I found is if you want to root your pothos really quickly is put it in the bathroom. There's something about humidity that really helps the pothos grow roots really quickly, and I think humidity helps all plants grow roots really quickly. It also helps seeds germinate a lot faster. So putting it in the bathroom was a trick that I found that growing my pothos plant really helped speed up the process. So next is how much water do I put in the container? I noticed that you put very little water in your container. So again, what you want to do is you just want to make sure that the node part is covered, because this is where the new root growth is going to be. You don't want to submerge the top leaves into water. You can actually see here that some of the leaves, when they start to grow, they will grow inside the water, and it's because the water doesn't have enough oxygen for all of the leaves to grow. So that's why I usually only put it at a halfway water level, and that's something that you want to watch. You don't want all of your leaves submerged in water. But I think pothos, if I'm not mistaken, can grow underwater. I'm not so sure. You might have to be able to train your plant though to grow in water, but if you just want it to be a sort of decorative house plant, you don't want to put too much water in your container. The next question, also dealing with water, is how often do you change your water? When your pothos is a new plant and you're watching it grow, you'll be really excited anyways. So what happened with me is I was changing out the water every 3 to 5 days. And then once it is an established plant like this, I actually only change the water out whenever I remember to, or when I start seeing algae growth, which is really gross. But the recommended is to change it out at least once a month. So yeah, just try to change out your water. They're not very picky whether you use filtered water or you just use regular tap water. But if you are using tap water, what I've read is that you want to wait like 24 hours for the chlorine or the other substances to evaporate before putting it into your plant. Pothos, though, in general is not very picky about the type of water that it wants, unlike my calathea plant, which only likes filtered water. And yeah, it's just really crazy. Some plants are very picky about the type of water that they can drink. Next question is, I don't see any growth on my pothos after 2 weeks. What do I do? So in a situation like this, I'm not so sure if she meant her entire plant had no root growth or if it was just a single stem cutting that didn't have any roots. That's why I usually recommend that you take a long vine and cut up everything so that you have multiple stems. Not all of them are going to root. I usually have about 98% root, but not everything will root, and you just have to throw out that leaf or just sacrifice it. And yeah, not worry too much about it, because you do have other leaves that are growing anyways. But if everything has not been growing, which I find kind of odd, maybe it is time to raise the temperature. I actually take for granted that I live in a tropical country, so the temperature here is always very warm. It's always about 35 to 38 degrees Celsius outside, and that is just really too hot. But indoors where we have aircon, it's around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius, and that's usually where I place my pothos plant in. Another thing you could try doing is moving it to a different location and then seeing if it would grow better. It's really trial and error. I learned most of this through experience, and I did lose a few pothos cuttings along the way, but because pothos is such a fast grower, you shouldn't really worry that if you lose 1 or 2 cuttings, because anyways they will grow back very quickly. So the next question is, do you plant into soil if you see new leaves growing? Will it affect leaf growth? So what I think she means is if there is a new leaf starting to shoot out, something like that, right there, is it okay to go ahead and replant the plant? Yeah, I think it's perfectly fine. I think that it is anytime that the plant is starting to shoot out new leaves, it means that it has already stabilized itself, and yeah, it's the perfect time to go ahead and replant it into whatever medium you want it to be in. So if you are going to plant it into soil, plant it very early on in the plant's life, because soil roots are a little bit different from water roots. Water roots are a little bit more delicate as compared to soil roots, and I will show you a sample of water roots in a while. So anyways, let's move on. Can you grow multiple plants in one pot? Yes, why not? Go ahead, if you have different plants from in different pots, go ahead and plant it all up into one pot. It's perfectly okay. I have a lot of plants actually growing in, like this one, it's my variegated pothos, and it is also growing with just a regular green pothos. And I actually put my pothos plant together with other plants as well and grow them all together in one container. So I do have a container which is growing my pothos and my monstera together, and I think it looks really good together because I just like that the way the pothos looks. It is a vining plant at the bottom, and then the monstera is quite tall. So yeah, that looks really good together. So yeah, go ahead and plant them all together. It's perfectly okay. So the next question is, do I fertilize my houseplant? So the funny thing about this question is I never thought to fertilize the pothos plant, simply because it is not, I read somewhere that it doesn't really need a lot of fertilizer. So it never crossed my mind to actually give the plant fertilizer. But when I read this question, I thought, wow, that's actually a good idea. So I decided to take some of the liquid fertilizer from my garden, the one that I've been using to grow vegetables, and put it into the water of this guy. And it actually does have a little bit of a difference. I think that the leaves are greener. So it's been about 1 week with this having fertilizer in it, and I think the fertilizer is like a combination of calcium nitrate and magnesium sulfate or something. I will put it down here what the fertilizer is, and potassium. So anyways, yeah, I think it has helped the leaves grow a little bit greener. So fertilizing your houseplants maybe once a year or every 6 months is actually a good idea. Go ahead and use liquid fertilizer if you are growing your stuff in Leica like I am, or you can use just the regular fertilizer if you have it into soil. So I think those are basically all of the questions from that video, and I just wanted to show you guys as well this plant. I think I also have a photo of it in that video, and this plant is growing extremely well. You can see that it is actually starting to vine quite a bit. So I'm just going to let it grow out right here. And then this guy is growing in a combination of Leica and water, and I do have it in a grow container. So this container is like half filled with water down here, and then it has a wicking system, and then I have it planted in Leica. So I'm going to quickly show you guys the roots, because the roots are really amazing on this plant. It has actually grown out of the container already, and it is growing extremely well. So that's the root system on this plant, and you can actually see the roots growing in between there. I do have some crushed eggshells. I'm not really sure if that actually helps give it calcium. I read somewhere that it's just a waste of time, but anyways, I already did it, so you can see that there is a bit of crushed eggshells in there. And then the root system is growing through the pot and out through the bottom area. So I'm very happy with this plant as well. And yeah, it's growing very happily in this container. I haven't repotted it since then, and I've just left it growing in this medium. The last thing that I wanted to show you guys is what happens after you take a plant cutting from the mother plant. So this is a plant that I actually took a cutting from, and you can see that the stem right here has now calloused over. And then what happened is the stem to the side of it, or the leaf to the side of it, started to grow outwards, and it actually started to create a new vine. So that's basically what happens is once you take off the top part, 2 new leaves will start to grow through the bottom nodes, and you will have a much fuller looking plant. So it is actually a good idea to go ahead and propagate your pothos when you can, or when it is starting to get really long and leggy, and then that ensures that your plant will start looking a little bit more full. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this week's video. I hope you enjoyed that update. If you have any more questions on the pothos, please do leave them down in the comment section below. I hope that I have answered most of the questions that you guys may have had, and actually it is also quite a learning experience for me, because growing houseplants is something that is very new to me. I'm also trying to grow vegetables hydroponically right now, and I will see how that goes and maybe produce some future videos on that as well. So anyways, if you enjoyed this week's video, please do give it a thumbs up, and if you aren't already, please consider subscribing to my channel. I do weekly videos, anything about luxury or about houseplants. I know that it is really far in terms of topics, but at the same time, I just really like things that bring beauty to life. So anyways, till next video, please do take care, and I will see all of you again soon. Bye bye.